You know, we're surrounded by all this incredible design, right? But what if the way we teach design is totally stuck in the past? That's what we're digging into today, a paper that argues for a huge shift, away from just designing objects and towards designing entire businesses.
And this quote from Gallant, wow, it just gets right to the heart of the problem. He's basically saying we're training designers in this little bubble, right? We're creating these brilliant artists who are totally unprepared for the messy, complex, real world out there.
Okay, so before we can figure out where design needs to go, we've got to look at where it's been. Let's talk about the traditional playbook for an industrial designer, a playbook that's, well, pretty outdated now.
For like decades, the whole idea was that design students were taught to be these singular authors of amazing objects. The focus was all on the look, the feel, the materials, the aesthetics. They were designing for these neat, predictable situations. But what happens when the world isn't predictable at all?
And that is the absolute crux of it. The world has changed. It's changed in a huge way. So that old playbook, it just doesn't work anymore because the entire economic game is different now.
The source material calls this new world cognitive capitalism. It's a fancy term, but the idea is simple. We're in a post-industrial era. The old rules about manufacturing, about what makes something valuable, they just don't apply anymore. So what does that actually mean for us?
Well, it boils down to about 5 big shifts. First, services are exploding. And what a product means, its symbolic value, is suddenly way more important than what it physically does. That leads right into emotional design, right? Then there's how we work. Our careers aren't these straight lines anymore. They're more like a collection of different projects. And probably the biggest thing of all, every single one of us, no matter the profession, has to start thinking like an entrepreneur. We have to own our work, not just, follow a set of instructions.
And that's why the old design methods are basically obsolete. You can't just take these huge, messy, interconnected problems we face today and break them down into little pieces to solve them one by one. It doesn't work. As Doris says here, they're dynamic, they're always changing, and they need a whole new way of thinking.
So if the old world is gone, what's the new playing field? Well, it's this thing called the entrepreneurial ecosystem.
And you can see the difference is night and day. The old way, the industrial network, was all about silos. You had companies just doing their own thing, in their own little worlds, so much wasted potential. But this new entrepreneurial ecosystem, it's the total opposite. It's all about how things connect, about collaboration, and that's what really sparks innovation.
Yeah, check out this diagram. It gives you a really good picture of what we're talking about. An ecosystem isn't just a bunch of random stuff thrown together. It's a living, breathing network. You've got your startups, your investors, the local culture, support systems, all these different players all interacting and bouncing off each other to create something way bigger than any one of them could on their own.
And the key traits of this ecosystem are, well, it's messy and diverse, everyone depends on everyone else, things are always changing, roles are shifting, and because of that, new ideas just kind of emerge and evolve together. But the really cool part is that knowledge spills over sideways. It's not top-down. Ideas spread and everyone benefits.
Okay, so this new world needs an entrepreneurial designer. Simple enough, right? But to actually build one, we have to deal with the old way of thinking. We have to confront these unconscious traditions, you could almost call it the enemy within, that are holding designers back.
And look, let's be fair. Traditional design school gives you some serious superpowers. Designers are incredible at creative problem solving, they can see the big picture, but on the other hand, it creates some pretty big weaknesses too. Like this obsessive hunt for excellence, whatever that means, or designing to get a thumbs up from other designers instead of, the actual people who will use the thing. And yeah, sometimes vanity gets in the way of seeing things clearly.
This quote from Montero, that's a bombshell, right? The idea that the more excellent a design is, the more disturbing it is for the community. It's suggesting that chasing this pure, abstract idea of design perfection can actually be a problem. Because think about it. A beautiful chair that wins a bunch of awards might be completely useless, or even harmful for the people who are actually supposed to use it.
So that's the real trap here. This unconscious tradition of excellence ends up being all about feeding the designer's ego and getting pats on the back from other designers. And in the process, it stops them from solving real, urgent, important problems. It becomes design for the sake of design, not design for the sake of people.
Okay, so that's the problem. How do we fix it? How do we basically undesign the traditional designer and build a new one? Well, the paper lays out a pretty clear, practical plan for doing just that.
It's a 3-step process. Simple. Step 1, Awareness. You've got to light that entrepreneurial fire. Step 2, training. Give them the actual skills they need. And step 3, application. Get them out there to test those skills in the real world.
So, when we get to that application stage, the first big question is, what should I even do? And this is key. It's not about sitting in a studio dreaming up the next cool-looking gadget. No. It's about getting out into the world, paying attention, and finding real, actual opportunities where design could make things better.
All right, then you have to answer, how do I do it? And this is where that whole ecosystem idea comes roaring back. You have to really get the lay of the land, know all the players, all the resources, all the connections, and figure out how to navigate that whole network to get things done.
And last but not least, where do I do it? This is all about the practical stuff, about managing risk. A real entrepreneur has to get the context. What's the economy like? What are the politics? What are the rules and regulations? You have to know the landscape inside and out. But you know, it's not all business plans and spreadsheets. This quote here really takes it to a deeper level. The first company that we must design is life itself. It's saying that being an entrepreneur is about more than just a business. It's about consciously designing your own life.
And that leaves us with this one big, fascinating question to chew on. Maybe this whole challenge of undesigning the designer isn't just about fixing a profession. Maybe the very first company any designer, or any of us really, has to build is themselves.